All right. Go. All right, you should be able to see we are about to begin progs. So first, with the way we have the league currently set up, once I run the progs, I need to go to inspect the element, and then in the workers console, I need to run a script to recalculate things. This fixes all the cap ratings. Also, as we end up with caps with ratings that are way higher than everyone else. So let's begin. All right. Running the script now. And done. Now we just do a refresh. And we shall begin. So we'll start alphabetically with Anaheim, and we'll work our way down. All right, so Anaheim. You can't really make this up. Brian Scalabrine had a god tier prog, so the White Mamba will be coming to the city of Anaheim. But Byron Powers continues to just not prog positively. Max Powers also stays static, and Fleecer declined a bit. Yeah, this seems a contender every year, so there's not really much to be changed there. They'll probably be in the conference finals again, but this wasn't like a god tier prog or anything for them. They actually got a little bit worse in terms of bench wise. Eeyore Moda pretty much died here, so that's going to be quite tragic. Now we'll move on to Anderson. Anderson Duffy. They've had a rough patch the last few seasons, but Mark Stonkus, Wilcher, and Co. all look really, really solid. Doug DeBerry is an absolute animal, and Bobby Gooden was a nice pickup. Frankly, I think this team had a really strong offseason. They're now a 52 rating, which I think is going to be the biggest turnaround we've seen. I think last year they were in the 30s. This team is probably a playoff team. They picked up Chase Culp, who had a good year for Detroit, and I don't see any real reason this team isn't a playoff team. So now we'll go on to the next one, which is Atlanta. Atlanta was looking for a breakout prog, and I gotta say, I think they got it. This is kind of going to be of a meme, but Josh Howard, who is actually on like 3 teams draft boards at number 1. Granted, they were all late lotto picks, but he was really wanted, and he has a great prog. And him and Carlos Clavel adding to the already insane potential that Fiddler and Finlay had. This team is deep when it comes to forwards, but outside of forwards, they have Dennis Mavin, who's pretty good. Allard plays above his overall, but ultimately this team's going to be made by their forwards and braked by everything else. They're just not great outside of their 4 small forwards with 69 or higher pot. I think Dennis Mavin's had a really solid career for them. I think he's their longest tenured player actually. Yeah, so he's probably going to be 6th man of the year or a starter for them. And Julian Gordon finally progged good, which is also pretty helpful. This team's definitely a playoff team. They're 65 overall. I don't think they're a contender yet, but I think Daniel was right. He's going to make the playoffs this year. So we'll go on to the next team, which is Baltimore. Great, Theresa's team, and not great, I guess. Ned Rogers Jordan got killed, but Dedrick Bynum continues to ignore age, and this team just continues to stay in the same relative area that's been for the last 4 seasons, which is they'll contend for the 8th seed, probably not get it, but you never know. Fab Melo is just completely useless now, which is highly unfortunate. You guys really wanted him. I'm sure JJ's happy you guys waited on LeBron. What's that guy got? Career 10 games played across 3 teams. Wow, that's so impressive. All right, go on to the next team. That's Boston. All right, so Boston still has a thin roster, but Bosch is going to probably average 10 rebounds on a team mostly full of guards. Bowden was a nice offseason addition, and they might have some of the honestly, they have 2 in their prime point guards, so their backcourt is set. I don't think this team is a playoff team because they really are lacking in the front court, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility if they make a big move, especially if they flip Gary Beasley for a big man. He has an expiring contract, and he does actually play fairly above his overall. He probably is one of the most hated players in the league, but we'll see. It depends on if they move him or not. So that brings us over to the next team, which is Carolina. Carolina's just they've been in the same spot for the last few seasons, which is unfortunate. They're a good team on paper, but they're just struggling with age. Bad progs continue to kill. Seeing Briggs below is 60 and he's just 32. Age was not kind to him. Jeremy Mitchell is going to put up a good season probably. And adding another bench guy like Stutz isn't too bad. But I just don't see this team going anywhere this year. They're they did right by their star. They did what the Rams did with Gurley. They gave Briggs that massive contract after he got him a ring, and unfortunately, post-contract versus pre-contract, big difference. He hadn't dropped below 20 points. Now he's 3 straight years below 20 points. Defensively, he hadn't dropped below 2 steals, and he hasn't topped 2 steals. And even passing-wise, his passing stats have decreased. He's right now probably the worst contract in the entire ABA, which is unfortunate for a former MVP and league champion, first ever defensive player of the year, one of the best players in ABA history. And by 32, he's already in. If we had an amnesty, would probably be a free agent. All right, and that brings us over to the next team, which is Chicago. Fleecer's done a good job with this roster. They have cap room to finally sign depth. And Ginn actually prog better. Is Ginn and Julius King might have been worth it. He needs to add depth to this team, but I don't really see a reason why if he doesn't add depth and take advantage of his cap room, he isn't a playoff team. But he's definitely someone that needs to stay on top of this roster to give them a real good chance late. Otherwise, they're going to continue to be great in the regular season. Did King move to point guard? No way. 7. Averaged 1 assist last season, but his passing rating is up to 65. What was it last season? Last season it was 62. Huh. What's his OIQ at? He might slowly turn into LeBron James. And that's going to be really cool to watch. Yeah, I think Q might have made a mistake moving him. We'll find out in a second. So on to the Cincinnati Royals. And the Royals are going to be led once again by Halenga, Shaheen, and the returning Wolfenbarger after a crazy tumultuous offseason. Billy did a great job, in my opinion, with this roster. He added a lot of depth for the first time in years. But still, not much is coming of it, unfortunately. Camps has been around forever, which is just legendary. But they're going to be a team defined by the fact that they have no 50s off their bench. Not really much else to say there. They have potentially the best starting 5 in the league, if not one of the best, but they ride and die on Halenga and Shaheen's health. And with Daedric not really taking that step up that they hoped, I guess it's actually good that he didn't sign the mega deal he was offered, or else he'd be kind of looking into bust territory here. He does play above his overall, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that whole saga. And there's a chance he gets moved to Vancouver. We'll see how they progged. So this brings us to Cleveland. George Moss. Let's see how he did. And George Moss stayed oh no, his pot died. It's a good roster. But just not the offseason I'm sure Moto was hoping for. kind of disappointing across the board, if I'm being honest. This is not what you like to see at Progs. This team had a lot of potential. Um, this was a miserable offseason, to say the least, for them. I think that they're still only a good prog away from literally breaking the league. I mean, George Moss had one of the best rookie seasons ever. He averaged 19 and 14 with 2.5 blocks a game. Brother now? That's cool. Oh, he does not have a brother now. Never mind. All right. And we'll move on to the next team, which is Dallas. All right. So Dallas is like perennially every year, I want this team to win. And then perennially every year, they suck in the playoffs after looking great all regular season. Nico Fedev, great GM. Offseason, he made the big move of getting David West, and that has already paid off. West probably would have been a top 5 pick in redraft. It was a ballsy call, but he did it. Unfortunately, the Dutchman basically died in the offseason. Tom Fireball Brown never developed for him, and Peleg went downhill quick. He's another one of those weird proggers that just crashed. His team is deep, but doesn't really have any star power. It's just a team effort. Logan Stern was a big addition, but again, is he really the star that he has been his entire career? Overall, this team is full of vets. They have, let me see, I'll take that guy off and we'll count up. In terms of players over 31, in their top, just half their roster, they have one of the oldest teams in the league. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do. They have a 78 overall rating and still have roster spots open, but they are capped out, so they might have to make a move. Big and Chunky is probably going to be a rotation piece in a year or two, but I wouldn't necessarily rule out them potentially packaging him in a trade, especially with J.R. McGee's contract. That contract is scary. I think I signed that contract, actually. Yeah, I signed that contract. That was on me. Granted, I was like 6 seasons ago when he actually looked good, but he's just been an utter disappointment. Pittsburgh was honestly smart to move on from him. I'm curious in their haul for him. Pittsburgh looks like they got a pick. They moved up in the draft, which can't say was a bad decision. Like, he frankly has been a complete disappointment since leaving Pittsburgh, and he showed promise in Pittsburgh, but he just hasn't lived up to it since. We'll see if he can do anything with his career in Dallas. And that brings us to the next team, which will be Denver. All right, so Denver, which features my cap, who actually had a good prog, which is a change of scenery, I think. And I'm a free agent, DD. But more importantly, Calvin Lee prog's decent. Taron Hasbro with a huge monster prog. This team is deep. Their rotation next year could very well be, let's see, if we just look at guys that probably should play 20 minutes a game, they're going to have a deep roster. I see no reason this team shouldn't be going to the playoffs, like deep in the playoffs. Brian Weber is probably the most disrespected superstar in the league. I mean, he was phenomenal, carried the team last season. And let's see where Caron's points got added, because I'm kind of curious here. So it looks like it was mostly actually on his offensive end, which will help a little bit because he was miserable last season. Oh, he was miserable last season. He averaged 3 points a game, career 2.1. Oh, but hey, we're still getting there. So we'll move on to the next team now, which is Detroit. Detroit was in the finals just 2 years ago. And Anura is still barely aging. He's a 69 overall, which is one of the top in the league. And Julian Clarkson, which is actually Cleve's my player or creative player, had a great prog and basically is the future of Detroit, which has a new GM too. This could be Detroit's year. They've really, really been in need of this for a while. They finally had the good progs. The reserves are there. Offseason additions of Cyrus Moore and Richard Williams both progged phenomenally. They have the new cast. They got the support that they needed. The Thunderbird Lawrence was a great pickup, and frankly, this team, they have potential. I don't know if this is going to be the year, but while Anura is there, I don't see any reason that they shouldn't be able to make another run. 71 rating. I'm curious where they're going to come in overall, but we'll have to take a look and we'll find out. All right, so now we'll move on to the next. Houston. All right, Houston with the 47 overall rating, but largely held by Drazen Petrovic. What's up? And Chris Matthews, a former second-round pick, Darko Milanic breaking out. Those three have turned M Process from, honestly, a team that I didn't think was going anywhere. Oh, and even with Willie Tree Huddleston. What? This team actually has some crazy potential. This might not be the year, but this team has three potential mega stars on their roster. Yeah, just a great offseason by the former GM of the year, I think. It's 2 seasons ago. All right, so we'll move on to the next team, which is Kansas City. Kansas City's season, or really their franchise story, comes down to just unfortunate timing and luck. In this case, they're missing out big. They have Jet Stevens as their franchise superstar, down from Shaheen just a few years ago. They have former first overall pick, and that's where I'll get on that later. But that's where the other sadness is. I mean, frankly, they had so many better picks they could have made. Instead, they went with Kramer. Kramer, in his time so far with them, has failed to top 15 points per game, failed to top 8.4 rebounds, doesn't have elite defensive stats. He's really looking like another J.R. McGee. He's going to be solid, great starter, but he is not a superstar. He is not going to carry this team to a championship. But he does still have that 69 pot, so I suppose we'll see. I could be wrong on that. All right, and we'll go on to the next team. Kentucky. Kentucky had a monster offseason. So let's see. 70 overall. 70 overall by Cat. Oh, wow. Cat is going to be dynamite. Jaden actually progged down a little bit, which is unfortunate. But Nabi Solano has 80 pot. What? This is just funny. He accidentally ends up with Nabi, who's named after his profile, and Nabi just blows up. And honestly, this team is going to be really exciting to watch this coming season. Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best young big men in the league, and we're entering a period where I think bigs are going to take over the league. The thing is, Cat doesn't really have the elite defensive chops, but he could put up some scary offensive numbers. We're talking like this season, I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 30 points, if I'm being entirely honest. I mean, you have to look at exactly how high his offensive ratings are. He's just a freak. It's great. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Kentucky does. I predict they'll be second round this year, maybe even a conference finals appearance. So this brings us to Vegas, probably the most anticipated team in the offseason. They had a great offseason. Phenomenal offseason, actually. So basically, Jacob Owens is the franchise. That should be clear to anyone. He's entering his contract year, but I don't see any reason he doesn't return as long as they make a playoff run. He's a 75 overall. He's scoring what was it last year? 26 points per game almost. He's going to be a two-way superstar this year with Jalen Alcobley, who they got off Hugh, which was probably an overpay, but we'll see. Their offseason saw them bring in DeJounte Noel, who, if I recall, he's a storyline player. You guys can check out his story on NCAA News. And he has 54 games out, but when he comes back, he is adding a whole dynamic to this team. Just give me 1 second. I have to go. All right, I am back. Sorry about that, guys. All right. I see there's some chat going on. Oh, Anderson Duffy. Oh, hey Gino. Yeah. Let me take you back there, okay? I think here we go. We'll just check it out right now. So we have a request to go check out the Meat Packers again. So let's take a look. So the Meat Packers progs, they can be summarized pretty much by okay. They're going to be a playoff team most likely. They got a lot deeper in the offseason. They made some really great offseason moves. Those, in my opinion, I will highlight right now. But bringing in all three of those guys, and the decision to trade away Gregory was great. They got value for him. He actually progged to a 58 overall. Yikes. DD says that he had some sexy progs, and yes, you did, DD. All right, so now we're going to continue hopping down the list. How far were we? I think we are LV, which puts us at Mexico City. All right, Mexico City's progs were well, they were Mexico City's kind of been in the same spot for a bit now, and I think they're going to stay there. They're not bad. They're just mediocre. They're probably a playoff team, but if they are they good? Trading Trustus was the way to go. Trustus ended up leaving Montreal for nothing, and you guys still have the borderline all-star Guzman. I mean, Guzman's basically ABA Mike Connolly. I mean, constantly being snubbed of all-star teams. But he's also like not like an all-star starter. He's like a low-tier all-star where you could like justify that. So we'll see. Let's see what the next team is like. Miami. Oh my God, no, please have a good offseason. Okay, so this is a lot to unpack. So Apex and Blaze broke out. Oh, Axel Blaze is actually he's a cap, which is really fun. I love seeing one caps break out, especially when they're later round picks. I think he was like an end of lotto pick, right? Yeah, he's the 20th overall pick, and he's now a 5370, which is insane. Apex is actually a storyline guy as well. He's basically loosely modeled after Sean Marion. I say loosely because Sean Marion was significantly smaller. This is basically if Sean Marion was a little beefed up, but more or less he was not effective as a rookie. Had a very bad season, but now looks like he's going to be part of Miami's long-term future. TJ taking a step back is a little disappointing. He had really been one of the bright spots on the team last year, but Jay Kumar and Kenny taking steps forward and adding Slamtown. This team really just needs a point guard, and if Blaze is that, it's going to be scary what this team can do. GM of the year, B. Kinney and Abdul is probably one of the best co-GMs in the league. This team's got potential. It's a little disappointing to see McPherson Thompson go down after his god rookie season. I mean, we never could have seen anything like that coming. If you look into the 2025 draft, who was taken before him? Taken before him was Cat, probably a good pick. Drazen and Moss, all of them actually probably pretty good. We've all seen all of them, but it's looking like George Moss was actually the worst pick of the four, which is not what I expected. So we'll move on to the next. This brings us to Milwaukee, which is Jaden's team. Jaden's might be here. Go back to Anaheim. Yes, I will go back to Anaheim here. Okay. Yeah, Lee is not dead. Lee lives. But yes, I'll go back to Anaheim. Let me finish up with Milwaukee. Okay. So A.O. McKinney is, he's going to be an MVP candidate again. But Todd Jackson really was the big story of last season. He broke out when given a bigger role. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team does. I think Rouse might not actually be on their roster. We'll see. Overall, this is a team that has a lot of potential, but is also handicapped by some of their contracts. Truck and Goran, even Ray Taylor. I have to figure out if Rouse is under contract or not. He might be an error on my end. Allen Johnson might be the biggest disappointment. Their team was one of the top defensive teams, and they added a guy who, in New Jersey, had averaged 2.7 and 2.5 steals in 23 and 24. And then he comes over to them in 25, and his steals just die. His defense just dies. His offense dies. He became utterly useless, and it perplexes me. One of the craziest things I've ever seen. His overall hadn't dropped at all either. It's just a freak of nature. All right, so we're going to go back to Anaheim because Hugh has requested that. That brings us over to Anaheim. Anaheim, as I had said earlier, Hugh, very solid offseason for Brian Scal. The White Mamba is probably going to be an all-star, which is so fucking funny when Brian Scalabrine is doing better than Kobe Bryant. Yes, I will head over to Detroit. Give me one moment and we'll head over to Detroit. You'll see here that Bonner also prog well, and Michael DeLuna, who's actually a creative player, but Moda died. What's this guy's height? 7'8"? Yeah, the 7'8" guy prog down, but don't worry about overall when it comes to super tall guys, because that 100 height rating is all you need. All right, we're going to head over to Detroit. Detroit, as I said, actually had a really solid offseason. So basically, Onura just didn't age, and their entire bench got better, including Julian Clarkson, who's a legitimate superstar now. Even Jaga Chinelli bounced back. He had been pretty much in purgatory, so I think getting a new GM was really big for them, and I think that they're probably going to be a deep playoff team this year, and they could be really, really special in a couple years as well. This is the revitalization they need. Yeah, it's a little disappointing to see Connaught prog down. He was honestly he got overpaid because he had a great playoff series, but he never was meant to be a star. You'll actually see this was the year that they made it to the ABA finals, and before that he had always been consistently at most a role player, or even just a prospect, and instead he turned into a quote unquote superstar. But he's never been a superstar, even a star. He was always meant to be a role player. So it's going to be interesting to see what you do with him. Yeah, so we'll move on to, I think we got a comment. Yes, Black Jesus. Yes, we will go to Black Jesus now. So Black Jesus, I think he had a bad one, but I'm not positive. So heading over to Cleveland. And here you'll see Earl Monroe had a slightly bad offseason, but really it was just a disaster across the board for GM Moda. George Moss's decline or static activity for another season is really rough to watch. He has so much upside. He could be one of the best players in the league, but he's now looking at the worst of the big four in that draft, which is highly disappointing, especially considering it was originally thought to be a 3-person draft, turned into a 4-person draft, thanks to McPherson. So yeah, on to the next team we go. Oh, ignore that. I have betrayed you all. Montreal. This is going to be interesting. So, Tall Smith continues to stagnate. He is falling into George Moss regions now, where he's just not progging and really risking wasting his incredible upside. I mean, this is a athletic freak who had a great rookie season, is a defensive force, and it's just an utter stagnation, which is highly disappointing. He is an all-star, though, which is surprising. Did not expect him to have made the all-star team last season. Billy Bogues, though, might be an MVP candidate. I mean, this might sound crazy to the 59 overall, could be an MVP candidate, but you got to keep in mind, this is improving off of last season's craziness. And in the first half of last season, he was probably one of the top 10 point guards in the league, and was putting up insane stats. They acquired Trustis at the deadline, and when they brought in Trustis, it directly hurt Billy's stats. But given back a full opportunity, he's under contract just to the end of this year, so he has all his reasons to go all in. And he could potentially see, his crazy 45% three-point percentage. If that's repeated, with his other high percentages, he could potentially be a 30 PER player. Was he a 30 PER player last year? No, last season he was 28. Yeah, I can see him hitting a 30 PER, 30-minute player and being a legitimate MVP candidate as he hits free agency. it's crazy to think he was a 5th overall pick, and I think we actually wrote him off as a bust for a while there. Oh, so he wasn't actually 5th; he was 9th, because this was the weird draft. You see him right here. And long story short, if I was to go back in this draft and I was to say who would I want, you can have a great score in penetrator #1, maybe. Calvin Lee definitely is not going #1. If you're doing a redraft here, like honestly, this draft is just weak. Like, damn. Like, actually, seriously, damn. This draft is really, really weak. Yeah, I would say that it's either Penetrator, Wolfbarger, or Bogues that would go #1. Actually, honestly, Brent Jones would go #1. Assuming he didn't die in Progs, we'll find out. I'm not spoiling it for myself. But anyway, good Progs for the Jazz. We'll move on to New Jersey. New Jersey is probably one of the most exciting teams, and Jake King progged like a god. So yeah, this will be really interesting to see. MJFE enters his contract year. Will he get traded, or will the team try to repeat with him? It's always a tough dilemma. You can trade that star, that extraneous star that you think you don't really need to be a top team. We'll see. So Muse is actually, his decline is a little alarming, but he's just going to probably ease into more of a passer with King breaking out as a real star. And Walt DeBerry, what the heck? Okay, so this just random 30th overall pick became a superstar, or could become a superstar. We'll see. All right, let's move over to the next team now. That's New Orleans, my former team. Penetrator is going to be great, and wow, they actually had a really solid progs. Bedrudge should be quite happy. Ezekiel Bridges broke out, which will be helpful, I suppose. How did you do last season? Last season he had 12, 3, 1. Nothing spectacular for a 12th overall pick. It's going to be interesting to see how he does this coming year. Scarn had actually broken out pretty big last season, so it's a little disappointing to see him still not quite be a 60. But his PER is insane, and it wouldn't be unrealistic for him with the cap points to be another season starter. Zach Lovelace, Ned Raj made the decision. So Zach Lovelace just 2 years ago looked like he was on the verge of becoming a superstar and wanted a big contract. Instead, Ned Raj paid him 1 year really big money, and you can tell right here that he made the right call because 14 and 8 quickly became 5 and 13, and I'm guessing at the end of this season it's going to look a lot more like 5 and 9, maybe. I mean, he's a 47 overall. He might not even start. All right, move over to the next, which is New York. So New York is still in a rebuilding period. So anyone they can squeeze trade value out of would be helpful, and it looks like they might have gotten that in Unsled. Unsled's now a 61, so he's probably not an all-star snub material. But yeah, I don't really know what to say about this team. It's just team. They're probably not going to be bottom of the pack or contending for a top 5 pick. Probably late lotto. Maybe if they get lucky with injuries and such, they could potentially be a low tier playoff seed. I mean, William Barnes has always been an effective player back during his Miami days. So he could potentially get a really big run and produce something like 16 points per game. And if he does that, I can see this team, if they can get a couple more points out of him, maybe being an 8th or 9th seed. But we have the perennial 9th seed coming up soon. Pittsburgh. So, how did Pittsburgh do? Oh, okay. Pittsburgh is tanking. I had to remember that. They're utterly tanking. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay. So Kong is probably going to be a beast, and that is the only good thing that this team has going for it. That, and they have a lot of expiring contracts and cap space. Skippy, you're probably not going to be the 9th seed this season. That's good. All right. San Diego, getting disappointing progs from their big three. This is a team that had so much potential and has not had any luck. And it's not the fault of Jade Audio or anyone, but they do have this random auto-generated Brad Daughtry who looks pretty good. Up front, they're actually super deep. Their issue largely comes at backup point guard, so they could use to pick up a couple guards, maybe make a run. Probably need to move John Cameron. This is just a team that was utter disappointment, which is unfortunate. I thought they had a lot of upside. I mean, Steve Rice was looking like he could be the next great thing, and he just came back down to earth after his what was his 3rd season where he looked like he was going to break out. And he's just not the superstar I thought he was going to be. Oh boy, we have a lot of chat. Why you curse Pittsburgh? Dang, bro. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right, yep. All right, we move on to who's Yo? You had a comment? You had a comment? I'll read it out loud. Just write it out, bro. Just write it out. But yeah, I do curse Pittsburgh. I think that not being the 9th seed isn't that bad. Because they could get a high pick, get Carmelo running mate. Hopefully he develops. I still think I tell you, he's going to be top 10 ABA scorer all time. That is my prediction. I'm going to stand by that. I don't know how. Probably by playing a lot of minutes, right? A lot of minutes on a lot of bad teams. I want to see how Donovan Butler progged, because actually we haven't seen the top 2 MVP candidates from last season yet. So until I've seen those, I can't really make any. Actually, I think top 3, because I think Banks was up there, right? But I will absolutely make an MVP predictions video. We'll probably do the same type of way. So I'll probably go live. Maybe tomorrow we'll do it. I'll go live off Zoom. Invite you guys all in. I'll probably have like a PowerPoint or something up, and I'll probably hop back and forth between the export. And then it'll end up going on YouTube for everyone to see. So we will go over to the next team, and we're almost done here. San Francisco. This team was running all shooting guards just a year ago, so give them some time. Slichter Martin bouncing back is good, but his career definitely took a turn for the worse recently. He was actually expected to become this mega star after his rookie season. He averaged 7.9 assists at 18, and he just did not bounce back in a good way, and has almost completely vanished from value last season. But a nice bounce back is going to be solid. Harold Maven, how is he doing? I haven't really been following. I feel bad. They're probably the team I've paid the least attention to in the league, just because it's been so meh the last 4 seasons. They've been perpetually a above average lotto team. They added Dean Little, who's a former All-Star, I'm pretty sure. No, he's just former champion. But he had a 20-point season with Baltimore and several really good ones. I'll highlight some of those. So even one not too long ago, he could be solid. It's going to be interesting to see. But anyway, let's go back to Maven. Albright, if he had progs, could have been the savior. Instead, he's the bane of their existence. Jordan Washington died, which is unfortunate. Like, his just value is 0. Mickey Collins progging nice gives them something fun to watch. He's more athletic, if I recall. He's actually a storyline guy as well. Let's look at Maven. So Maven is 2 years with the team. He's actually been by far their best player. And it's going to be interesting to see with him heading towards free agency. He is definitely someone that could legitimately refuse to sign or demand a trade. I mean, he's high overall, borderline all-star, putting up great stats in purgatory. We'll see. It depends how GM Lex Goat does. And this brings us to Hitler's team, Seattle. the 40-year-old Matt Pitts is still probably going to be an all-star, or at least close to it. It's not a bad roster. They've done a good job building around Pitts this time, but Tommy Hawthorne's contract is not great. And Richard Hopkins, while an MVP candidate, I don't think he plays up to his overall. We'll have to see if that changes this year, but they're still a couple pieces away from being a true contender. They're probably a 8th or 9th seed, in my opinion. All right. Next up is St. Louis, which, wow, is the curse of St. Louis over? Who's St. Louis's new GM? D-Mart. D-Mart might have saved St. Louis. So basically, they had a very quiet offseason. They made most of their moves early in the offseason. And Dante Cook was probably their biggest addition. He's a scoring big. He's a storyline guy. Actually, kind of model a little bit like Carmelo, in my personal take. More play style wise, kind of hybrid between Darius Miles, Carmelo. But Cagle breaking out was big. Hey, look at another Billy guy breaks out. And Petrie is probably the most like low-key superstar. He's basically like Chris Paul of New Orleans, but in St. Louis. Like, he's not making the playoffs, but he's putting up really solid stats. 17-9 last season. This team's a playoff contender. They're 72 overall. I mean, back during when Zeke ran this team, they were consistently having 460s and not making the playoffs. This season, it looks like they have 5. Yeah, because they have Gazaka. Gazaka is still around. So we'll see. Gazaka might actually be the first advanced age guy that worked out if he gets them there, because certainly didn't work out for Mexico with Boaz. So we'll go to Toronto. I think if Butler prog good, probably MVP. Butler did not prog good, probably not MVP. But Noel is now a legit second star for him, so that's going to be a really fun duo to watch. And your Massox guy, prog's pretty okay. Oh, we have comments. I have not released the export yet, but it will be coming soon. And we'll see. Wow, this is just a mixed bag, honestly. I feel kind of like this is definitely a deep playoff team. Like, Butler and Childs, Warner, like, wow, just across the board, it's a solid team. They really are lacking a playmaking point guard. Like, I don't think they have a single player with passer or dribbler, right? Yeah, no passer or dribbler badge. Oh no, they do. They do. They have a 50 overall point guard. Tyrell Brokens. Granted, he's got 60 on pot, so maybe he's their Rondo. All right, and that brings us to Utah. Oh, JJ, no. Hey, look, LeBron. That's about it. I don't think McPherson's winning MVP this year. I don't think he's averaging a triple-double again. I think that was really cool. Statistical anomaly for sure. Wade and LeBron adding to the bench is going to be cool. They're in a weird spot because, like, they spent their money, but, like, I'd argue that they got worse by spending it. It's a weird state. But LeBron is going to be great. Oh, no. Is that a comment about me bashing JJ? Probably is a comment. Yeah, so the YouTube channel, what it's going to be, it's actually already been made. I'm just going to upload this recording onto the YouTube platform, and then I'm probably going to do a couple Zoom sessions, maybe 1 or 2 a week, with just predictions and stuff instead of necessarily doing articles, because for me, the articles, I feel like I enjoy more verbally than I do doing them on Discord. In addition, I feel like it would be a little bit easier for me to it would be a little bit easier for myself to break down, so to speak, and just, yeah, I don't know, compartmentalize a little bit. So here we go on to, I think, Vancouver. Yeah, so Vancouver is a thin team. They need to add depth, but Sam Eustace, legitimate superstar. Banks bouncing back, could be an MVP candidate. I don't really see it happening. This is a team that they got their championships. I mean, let's see. I think they have 2 championships. Yeah, 2 championships in 5 years. They've won 60 games 4 of those seasons, including a 69-win season that only missed because of injury. Yeah, they're fine. And that brings us to Washington, who might be the favorites this year. So Washington added another another ball dominant guard. They now have 2 ball dominant guards and Livingston. Don't know how that's going to work out. Livingston might need to get shipped. Regardless, though, Trustus and Wade is either going to be like, well, frankly, it's either going to be like Jennings and Monte, or like Curry and Thompson. Really good or really bad. But it's going to be fun either way. So, yeah. And Forrest Morris might low-key be a starter. He's had a heck of a career, barely playing in Utah. So, late first-round pick, barely played, complete bust. Traded for a second-round pick, I think, maybe even for free. Yeah, traded for free. Then let go in free agency after a breakout year by the cap that ran the team he was on. That's just utter betrayal. Yep, see ya. That's actually the last team. So export will be out soon. And yeah, I'll send a link to everyone for the YouTube video so you can watch the breakdown. And yeah, any questions or anything real quick? All right, just giving you guys a couple seconds for questions. All right, cool. We'll just end off this video by looking at the top player ratings. And let's see, we'll have Owens at number 1. He honestly MVP favorite, probably Owens. Number 2 for me is going to be Karl Anthony Towns. And 3 is going to be James Kalinga. Those are probably my top 3. If I had to put an honor in there, it was actually going to be Jacob Anura. So, but I'll do a whole video on my top 10 MVP candidates coming up soon. All right, and finally, power rankings are actually really parodied, and I like it. A lot of parody. But see you guys.